Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to dive into a new series today. So, this series is called You and Me. It's by Lexy Timms, and the first book in the series that we're going to review today is called Just Me. We meet Catherine, who is 28 years old, and she has moved to San Francisco. She's also running from an ex-husband. She works at a little bakery, and she pretty much is like the barista there. And we find out she doesn't really need too much money because she had stashed a good amount of money when she lived with her husband. His name is Tim, by the way. She has this job because she just kind of wants to be able to be around other people, but she doesn't need it. She used to live in a mansion. She says that at first Tim was very loving, but then he began to slowly isolate her from everyone, friends, family, and he very much wanted it to appear as if he was the only one that loved her, and he did these things because he just loved her so much. And we find out she had gotten really thin during this time, and she's just now starting to get her weight back up, so she's getting her curves back. And we find out this is a fourth city that she's moved to because all the other times Tim has found her. And so this is, she's feeling pretty safe here. She's still on edge, but she really does feel like San Francisco really can possibly be her new home. We then meet Benjamin O'Leary. And yes, we're doing the back and forth POVs. You know I love it. So he's on his way to a business meeting. He's running a little late, and he figures, you know what? The best way to make up for it, buy them pastries. And yes, he stops by the bakery that Catherine works in. And so right off the bat, he can tell that she's dyed her hair because he can see the blonde roots. So she's now a brunette. And he, of course, is kind of wondering, like, why would someone, like, do that? And she has these blue eyes, very striking. She has curves. He's liking it all. He's enthralled right off the bat. There is also a woman there that is named Talia. She's a redhead. And so she, of course, notices Benjamin, and she's like, overly flirting. But he is just so focused on Catherine. And so he goes over there to where she is. She's making a latte for someone else. And he's like, I would have ordered an espresso if I'd known you would be doing it. She doesn't say anything. He's not used to this. But he's also not a jerk about it. So he's like, okay, you don't want to talk to me? Cool. Like, he didn't blow up at her. Because, a lot of times dudes will do that, get really pissed at you. You don't say anything. It's awful, but it freaking happens. Catherine then makes the statement, next time you should order a drink with Talia. That's it. She looks at him for a second, turns her head, goes back to what she's doing. He's about to walk out, but he decides to walk back over there to where she is. And he said something else to her. I can't remember, but she didn't respond. She just smiled. And, of course, now his mind is so on her. So he's headed to his company. We find out he's the CEO and founder of a pet accessories company that he started up in college. So his girlfriend at the time in college had like a teacup type of dog, and he had made a costume for it for Halloween. Everyone liked it. And his good friend Rachel, who still works with him, she's his assistant, was like, you should start selling this stuff online. And so that's what he's doing. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar business. So today they're going to introduce some new accessories, and he easily could have his project managers pitch this stuff, but he still loves doing it. He loves the work, everyone there loves him. It's definitely an open environment. Like anyone, no matter what your position is, you can talk to him. So he's going into this meeting and that's the reason he was late. So he picked up the pastries and everyone was happy about it. We switch back to Catherine's POV. It's after work, and Tala's like, you live at such and such, right? It kind of freaked her out a little bit because she's kind of thinking, like, how do you know where I live? But she's also like, I'm not that far from you, how do you get to work? Like, do you have a vehicle? Do you walk? And Talia walks. So she's like, we can just walk together. So she agrees, because Talia's like, I can show you all the cool places. Because she apparently was born and raised in San Francisco. So she's like, I can show you everything. So she's like, okay. So as they're walking, she's making mental notes of all the different places that Talia's telling her. And then it's time for Talia to turn off because she's going home. Well, panic sets in for poor Catherine. And she is like, oh my gosh, she's by herself. She's she's not going her normal route. So she starts freaking out just a little. Well, she freaks out a lot. She starts walking really fast. Then the girl starts running when she sees a man in a suit, because Tim wears a suit all the time. Tim is an attorney, we find out, and she left him 2 years ago. So 4 places in 2 years, he's tracked her down. It seems like it's a game to him. A thing of like, I can get to you whenever I want. That's what it's kind of appearing to me. I don't know yet, but that's just kind of the vibe it's giving me. So she runs to her apartment, and there's a little old man outside. He gives her a wink, and that makes her feel good because it's kind of like, okay, possibly, he'll watch out for me. Now, why does she think that? I don't know. I figured she would just be suspicious of everyone. But I guess, it gave her some form of comfort. She runs upstairs to her apartment. Even though you have to have a key to get in her building, that still doesn't give her full security. So when she gets to her door, she has 6 locks on her door, so she's got to unlock all of them. And then she gets inside and she's got to lock them all back. And when she's finally inside, she kind of falls down and a tear falls from her eyes, because it's like, even though she's in her apartment, it's like she just had a traumatic experience, that fear that overtook her. I feel bad for the woman. But she does feel like this apartment, this is her safe space, and she starts to panic again because she's like, what if someone was in here, someone looking through her stuff? So she is really traumatized. She has a memory of Tim. He had a conference out in Phoenix, and she went to Las Vegas, and she felt free. She was happy, and she goes to the pool, and she has on her bikini. She falls asleep, and when she wakes up, there's a man that woke her up, and she can hear Tim through the man's, I don't know if it was like a watch or something, but basically she tried to cover herself up, and he's just like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to cover up now? You've already let everyone see my goods. So right there, you already know what type of individual he is. Awful. We switch back to Ben, and Rachel comes in to talk to him. It's the end of the day, and she wants to talk to him about her concerns. She really wants him to get a life outside of the office. So we get a little backdrop, and we find out 4 years ago he was in a serious relationship. He was like considering buying a home with this woman, possibly marrying her, and then the woman dumped him. And he really hasn't tried to get into anything serious since. Like, he's dated and stuff like that, but nothing's really sparked. Rachel's tried to set him up different times with people, but it just never, it doesn't go the way she hopes it's gonna go. So he's a workaholic, and she knows that, and that's what scares her for him. She's like, I don't want you to become one of those old CEOs who dies alone. I just don't want that for you. And she tells him before she leaves out not to work too late. He, of course, works too late. And as he's going to his vehicle, he thinks, what, she might have a point. He still, of course, has that barista on his mind. And he doesn't know if she'll keep his attention. But she is a mystery that he definitely wants to figure out. Catherine decides to join the local gym. It's not far from where she lives. It's called Fitness Planet. Every time I read it, I want to say Planet Fitness every time. So she's going to do a trial run. and possibly join this gym. The girl, Claire, I think her name is, she's really trying to sell it. She's really nice. She's really confident. Kind of makes Catherine remember how she used to be. She used to be that type of a woman, until everything went down with Tim. And so she is a little envious of the woman that she is able to have um, that type of confidence. And she wants to get that back. And so this is kind of her first start, getting back into the gym. She used to love working out and things like that. So she's ready to get back out there. She winds up getting on the treadmill and she's running. We find out she used to do track and field in high school. Um, and as she's running, she starts feeling like she's running from someone else and the panic sets in. I felt so bad just reading this for this woman, I'm like, you poor thing. Oh. So she kept going though. She did get off the treadmill, but in spite of that, she is determined to get her headspace to where she can control this fear, because she really does love San Francisco. The people there have been incredibly nice to her, and it really does feel like a place that she can call home. So our boy Ben is going to the gym because even though he has a home gym, he knows that if he's home and he wants to stop, he's going to do it. But if people are watching him, he'll feel like he has to push through. So yes, he is going to Fitness Planet. Claire, the same woman that had introduced herself and was showing Catherine around, has a crush on Ben. And so they're having a little conversation. We find out that Ben had bought her poodle this little toy. Really not bought it. It was he has a company, So it was one of those. And every time she comes in, she feels the need to update him on how the poodle is doing with the toy. He's not into her at all. He thinks she's too young. Just not into her. So then, of course, he spots our girl Catherine. She's lifting weights with the dumbbells. He goes over, mistakenly kind of bumps into her. They do this whole apology thing. And he, of course, is like, you're the one you work at the bakery not far from here, right? And she's like, yeah. She's like, do I know you? He's like, yeah, I'm the one that came in the other day for all the pastries. And she goes, oh, the latte guy. And he's like, yeah. So then he says, well, they say 3 times, some type, whatever that little, thing is, 3 times a charm, 3 times whatever, he's like, to ask her out on a date. He's like, maybe we should go for dinner. And he could see the rejection coming before she even says it. She's trying to figure out a way to say it. And then she says, just, I'm sorry, no thank you. He's blown away by the response. But even though it hurt, he's still very much intrigued by her. Still wants to uncover this mystery. It's after work, and Catherine and Talia are talking. And Catherine's telling her how she needs to unpack. So Talia, starts asking her questions. And it's like, hey, I can help you pack, And so we get a little backdrop. We find out that Catherine is from Los Angeles, which has me kind of thinking, where did she go? That she was from Los Angeles and she's now in San Francisco. You in the same state. I'm just a little baffled by that one. She does describe how this is her in her head, describing how when she left, she had 2 suitcases. She was at the bottom of the stairs. She had called the police so that way she would be able to leave. Because of course, being that he's a lawyer, he's not going to try and make a scene in front of, law enforcement. And I'm just curious about where these other 4 places are. That's it. That's my whole thing. So Talia's like, you know what? We're going to make it a night. I'll cook us a nice quick pasta dinner. We'll have some wine and we'll unpack. So they're going to go to Hendrix, which is this great organic marketplace. Talia goes off to do something. She winds up flirting with some guy. And then Catherine feels her skin prickle. She knows someone's watching her. And of course, it is our boy Benjamin. And the tomatoes that she was picking up, she drops. He comes up to her. And she's picking up the tomatoes. He's helping her. He's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, no, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything. He introduced himself, gave his actual name. She gave her name, and they could feel the electricity when they shook hands. And he, of course, asked her out again, um, because what can I say? He's highly motivated. And she's like, I just moved. And he's like, well, you got to eat. Let me take you to dinner. Well, after she said no again, he goes, I'm a very determined man. He goes, don't make me have to stalk you. Girl face goes pale. He realizes he made a really awful joke. So then Talia comes over, and she, of course, asks her if she's okay, and all this type of stuff. And then she has a little convo with Ben. She remembers him, he remembers her, and all this type of stuff. And we find out Hendrix is Ben's favorite place. He actually takes them over to the wine section. He's like, there's a really great wine that I have. Just let the Hendrix know. Well, the place is named after the owner's dog. So, but he's good friends with the owner as well. So he's like, let him know, that I, recommended it for you. And that's it. So Ben is really thinking about how he really has allowed his work to consume him. So he's really at a place where he's doing a lot of reevaluating after he had that conversation with Rachel. So then they're back at Catherine and Talia are at her place. They're finishing up dinner. She made like this chicken pasta dinner for her. It was great. No, chicken pesto dinner for her, and it was great. And Talia tells her, that she sees that there's a cloud over her, and she just wants her to know that when she's ready to share, that she can. She told her about, her mom used to always know when something was wrong with her and would always tell her, share the load. She's like, so I'm offering the same thing to you. And Catherine decides to tell it all. But the first question that Talia had asked was, why were you so cold to the man in the store? That shook her because she didn't expect that to be the first question that she asked her. And so she said, well, let me tell you like the full thing of what's going on with me. Okay. So she tells it about the fact that, her and Tim being married, how controlling he was. And that, at first she thought that was his personality, but then it just got progressively worse and worse. She started talking about wanting a family, and she wanted kids, but she still wanted to work. Now, I don't remember what she said she did for a living, but she was up for a promotion, and again, she wanted to be a working mom. Well, he didn't like that. So he bought the company she worked for and shut down her department. I'm like, damn, that's just cold as hell. So she didn't think, like, she knew that was bad, but that wasn't the worst thing to her. So it got to the point to where he physically hurt her until his hands were bloody. So he's pretty violent. And we find out that she did move to New York, but he found her. And so that's when she decided, well, she might as well just be closer, since it doesn't matter how far away she goes, he'll find her. So she decided to come back to California, more of her comfort zone. Even though Northern and Southern California are different, but I guess she preferred that. So I'm like, okay, now that makes a little more sense. Because at first I was like, well, why the hell why you just left and went upstate? Don't get it twisted. People can hide and be in plain sight and you wouldn't know. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I just wondered about that. So now we know that's why she is in San Francisco. So she tells tells Talia all this information. Talia gives her a hug. She definitely feels like, she made the right decision in, not letting go, but like just getting that information off of her chest, like releasing that to someone else. Will is having a conversation with Rachel. He told her about Catherine and what had happened. And Rachel's like, don't just give up yet, Um, but he was like, he saw the look in Catherine's eyes and he just really wanted to back off. But he did want to apologize to her for, um, like causing her to feel like that. And so Rachel was like, well, you should send roses to her job. And he's like, I'll think about it. And then his old friend Will comes in, and he's known Will, I want to say, since college. He's known Rachel even longer than that, since they were like in grade school. And he has noticed that there is definitely a vibe between Rachel and Will, but it's like neither one of them wants to say anything. It's so weird. Well, whenever Will comes into town, he winds up leaving work early to go hang out, which is good because he needs to, because he is a workaholic. He is a workaholic. And so Will tells him about this charity event that he's got coming up. It's in the works. And he tells Ben, you should bring Rachel. And Rachel's like, nah, but I think you should bring Rachel. That would be nice. And he's like, there's no pressure. It's a charity event. And Will's like, I'll think about it. But Ben doesn't tell him about Catherine just yet. He kind of feels like he doesn't want another judgmental response. So he just kind of keeps it to himself. Next day at the gym, Catherine has decided she is going to sign up for self-defense classes. She's loving this whole empowering thing, and no one else signed up for the class, so she's the only one, and she's getting one-on-one from the instructor. She's so happy, and she's not ready to stop, but the instructor had another appointment. And then Ben comes in, and we find out that he did send her a bouquet of roses with this like very sincere apology, and she decided she wanted to approach him and apologize for her weirdness, and the way she reacted to him in the store. And so she goes over and she apologizes to him. And he just wants her to know that he's not going to bother her anymore. He respects her decision. He was intrigued by her, but he understood, and he was going to respect that. And then she starts talking about, boxing and stuff like that. And we find out he likes boxing as well. And so since the instructor had left, he's like, if you want me to spar with you, I can. I don't mind. And she's like, okay. And so he's like, all right, show me your moves. So they have a good workout afterwards. She asked him what he does. He says, I sell pet accessories. And that's all he said. He even said something about that he'd been thinking a while about getting a dog. But the truth was he hadn't gotten one because he didn't want to leave the dog alone at home, even though he could bring the dog to his job because it's his freaking company. But the truth was he worked so much and he wanted the dog because being home was kind of lonely. So he preferred to be around people. That's why he worked so much. Now, that little part he didn't tell her about, but that's the real reason. So then they're about to part. They're about to leave, and she asked him about this place up the street called Batter that Talia had told her about. And he's like, oh, yeah, I heard about that place. It's good or whatever. And she asked him to go to breakfast. And so now they're going to go up the street and have a little breakfast date. They go to the Batter restaurant. The food comes out. It's great. They have a little conversation. Whatever he asked, she did answer him immediately. She did tell him she was from LA. And but she didn't go into too much detail, But if they had really sweet, good conversation. He, of course, is like, I hope to see you around. It was nice bumping into you again. And she's like, yeah, that would be nice. And, slowly but surely, her little shield is cracking, coming down. So Ben goes to work, and then he talks with Rachel during lunch. He tells her everything. Rachel's so excited for him. She is concerned because Ben did say he does feel like she's hiding something. And I think that's honest with any friend. They would be like, what you think they hiding? I think that's just a normal response. Then again, you just met the person. You got to give people time to tell you whatever it is they need to tell you, So he wants to ask her out for dinner that night. And Rachel's like, listen, she approached you. You went to breakfast this morning. You all had a wonderful time. If she didn't like you, if she wasn't interested, she would not have done that. And he's like, you know what, you're right. So spending that time with her that morning put so many things into perspective for him, because it used to be that he come into work and it was like, okay, I got all these things I got to do. He's just fully thinking about work. Now he's thinking about, I got to get through all this stuff so I can get back to my life outside of here. So that's a good thing. He needs a personal life. He needs this time away from work. I think it's a good thing. And I think also it helps people that are there that I'm quite sure are very qualified. They can kind of probably step up more. It's like you work so hard, you build something so grand, you know, you put the right people in place. They can either take it further for you or, at least take a lot of the load off of you. So this is a very good thing with him liking Catherine. So Catherine's at work. She's telling Talia how everything went that morning. Talia is so excited for her, especially knowing what her friend has gone through. It just makes her even happier. And you gotta love people like that. Talia asks, well, when are you gonna see him again? And Catherine's like, I don't know. And then a couple old ladies come in, they give their orders. And then before you know it, someone else comes in. She hears the voice, she knows it's Ben. So he comes up, he orders a latte, and then she's like, is there anything else that you would like? And he says, yes, would you go out to dinner with me tonight? And she's like, yeah. She's like, but can we go somewhere casual? Because I don't want to have to go home and change. But the truth was, she didn't fully trust him to know where she lived at that moment. So that's a pretty good excuse. I don't think she really did want to go home and change either. So I think it worked out. And she's like, I don't get off for another 45 minutes. He's like, that's fine. I brought work with me. So he had his little laptop bag. And so we sat in the corner and worked until she got off. She goes, she freshens up. She can see her blonde hair. Her blonde roots are coming in. And she made a little mental note, got to get some dye to cover that up. She did think for a moment how she missed her blonde hair. But, when it comes to her safety, it doesn't matter. They leave and he tells her there's this festival going on at the park up the street. And all I could think about when they said park, I immediately went to Dolores Park. Because both times I went to San Francisco, that's the park I went to. And I know there's more, I just didn't visit them. But that's immediately where I thought of that they went to. And she's like excited. They're having this festival. She's all hyped up to go. She's like, it sounds so fun. They get there. She gets a little timid because there's a lot of people, and that means you can't really see who's lurking in the background. So I kind of get it. They had a really great time. They tried some Korean Mexican food. It was like Korean barbecue and like tortilla. So it was really good. They both love it. They had strawberry crepes. They had a great time, and then they had a little small kiss. So she pulls away from the kiss. They both have lust in their eyes. Some young teenagers come up, sit at their table. They wind up walking away. They're holding hands, and then they wind up having a real kiss. This one was full of passion, and she felt it. And she let go, and she tells him, I want to take it slow. And he's like, okay, I'll go as slow as a snail if that's what you want, sweetheart. So that's his nickname for her. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. So then he was like, okay, I'll take you home. A little panic set in, not because she thought, he would do something to her, but it's like she had let Talia know where she lived, and it's like, here comes this new person. But then she thought, you know what? I let Talia in, and that was the best thing that's happened to me since I've been in this city. So you know what? It's okay. So he has a sports car. I think he had like an Audi. And she, of course, didn't think he would have something like that. And he's like, what did you think I would have? She's like, I don't know, like a silver sedan. He's like, don't worry. I go the speed limit, nothing else. And she's like, okay. So he takes her home. He didn't walk her up. He's like, I get it. We're taking it slow. We're getting to know each other. So she's excited. And she, of course, is wondering when she can see him next. Ben goes to work the next day. He, of course, is super happy. Rachel, of course, notices it. She wants the deets. And so after they go through some of the things that they actually had to work and go through and finalize for the launch, um, he of course gives her the rest of all the information. So then he gets a call from Will, and Rachel gets happy when Will calls, but again, she's not going to say anything, and I guess the Will guy isn't either. So then Will's talking about the charity event's going to be this Saturday, and so Will was like, well, you need to ask Rachel. And Will's like, well, she's probably really busy. And he's like, and no, here she is. So he gives the phone to Rachel, and she talks to him, and he of course asks her, and she of course says yes. And then they wind up having this conversation, Rachel and Ben, about him asking Catherine to go to this event. He's trying to find a way to do it and make it like really special for her. Catherine gets a phone call from an unknown number. She answers it. Right off the bat, she knows it's Will. And the reason he got her number from Talia, because they hadn't exchanged numbers. Because she was kind of worried, like, oh shoot, how are we gonna hook up again? We didn't even exchange numbers. But shout out to Talia, she made sure she gave the information. So he says to her, that he was thinking about her. She of course says the same thing. They're really super sweet. He asked her out for dinner. She was like, cool. There was this new Greek spot up the street she was thinking about that Talia had told her about. He's like, okay, meet me there in 15 minutes. She gets there. He gives her a gift. It's a beautiful gown. She's like, what is this for? He tells her about the charity event. She's absolutely down with it. We find out she comes from money. So her father was very philanthropic. Or maybe, no, I said that wrong. Philanthropic. I can't talk today. And so she's used to this. But when she got married to Tim, he didn't believe in philanthropy. He felt like if you gave people stuff, you're cheating them. But the truth was he's cheap and he just didn't want to give anything to anybody. He wanted everything for himself. So she's really excited about going to this event. They had a great dinner and she's just really excited. She's very much like, she wants to tell him things so that there aren't any more secrets. She really wants to try and be her full self with him. We switched to Ben's POV. He's describing the date, and how open he was with her. He was telling her about the charity event, Will and Rachel, and how he just kind of possibly just hooked them up. He talked about his last relationship not working out, how he had kind of closed himself off, and that Rachel was the one that kind of told him, you need to pursue this. You like her, you should pursue it. And she was honest. She said that she was scared at first because she liked him, and it scared her that she liked him. She did say she got out of a relationship 2 years ago, and she was just starting to heal. The waitress was trying to flirt with him so hard, but Ben just wasn't paying her any attention. He only had his eyes for Catherine. And then afterwards, they took a walk because neither one of them was ready for the night to be over. And I thought that was so sweet. But when you're having great conversation, that's how it is. You don't really want it to end. So I totally get it. So they go for a lovely walk. They wind up kissing, and then it rains. So it's like a whole movie scene with them kissing in the rain. And they wind up getting a cab, and she's like, why are we getting a cab? You have your car. And he's like, yeah, but they had walked so far away, So then he gets the taxi, and the taxi driver is like, well, where are we going? She decided, she was tired of being scared. She wanted, even though she had said she wanted to take things slow, she wanted to be with Ben. She wanted more. And so she said, we can go to your place. So he told the taxi driver, head downtown. They head to his place. Of course, she's shocked because she didn't know he had this kind of money. She's like, I thought you told me you sold pet accessories. He said, I do, but I own the company. She's like, oh. Like, even the taxi driver was like, dang, when he saw the house. So they get inside. He gets her some clothes, like a t-shirt, big t-shirt to change into. And she's like, she wants a tour. So he takes her around the house. She loves the theater room. And then she tells him, I want to show you something. So she takes him back to his bedroom. She's walking faster than him, so by the time he gets there, she's in nothing but her bra and panties, and he is about to lose it. He, of course, gets across that room so fast. They have this passionate kiss. He carries her to the bed. He starts eating her pussy. He fingers her. She comes. Then they have a nice heart fuck session. She comes again. She had never had multiple orgasms. She thought it was a myth. So this was so explosive on both ends for them. And she was just like, she was going to have to, how did she say this? Pretty much not let fear deter her anymore. Because look, it's panning out. So the next morning he gets up. He made her breakfast. It's the only meal he knows how to make. She was excited about that evening because it's the night of the charity event. And she wanted to know everything about it, what it was for, and just all kind of questions she had. And he had to take her to go get the dress because it was still in his car that he left. And then he took her home, and he had a driver, I want to say, pick up his other vehicle. And she's like, "You have a driver?" He's like, "Yeah." He's not a flashy person, and he feels very awkward when it's kind of like people realize like the enormous wealth that he has. So but again, she's used to being around money, but he, I think, clearly has even more money than what she was used to. And she lived in a mansion with her husband. He had called her to get her address because even though he's taken her there, he's never come up to the door. So she gave it to him, and he had some stilettos sent over, and a really nice bag to go with it. And she was just so like, oh my gosh, it was so sweet. Talia came over to help her get ready. She told her everything. Talia's so excited. We find out Talia knew who he was from the get-go, but she didn't want to freak her out, and I think a little vice versa. I think them not knowing, her not knowing he was this billionaire dude, and her not knowing who he was for him helped as well, because it wasn't this thing of, oh my gosh, she's trying to get my money, you know what I mean? So I thought that was smart on Talia's part. Talia leaves. She looks fabulous. She goes downstairs. They get in the back of the vehicle because they had a driver, and they're about to fuck in the back of in the back, but he's like, we gotta control ourselves. He's like, I promise afterwards, we get home, I'll make it worth your while. So then, as soon as they get out, cameras start flashing. Actually, I forgot to mention before, while they were in the car, he gave her a Tiffany necklace. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he put it around her neck. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're spoiling me. And he was like, you deserve it. They get to the event. She meets Rachel. They hit it off right away. They become fast friends. She can clearly see, how important he is kind of to everyone. Everyone's trying to talk to him, but his focus is, I'm not talking business tonight. And that's not normal. He doesn't normally do that. She goes to the restroom. He notices some guy looking really angry in their direction. And so he's like, I think I've seen that guy before, but he can't place him. It made him a little uneasy. And so he was like, he was just going to go wait for her near the restroom. So Catherine's in the restroom. She hears women talking. They're saying, like, did you see who Ben was with? That model he came with. And she comes out, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We didn't know you were here. She's like, it's okay. Because, again, it's not like they were saying anything bad about her. You know what I mean? Like, they were saying how drop dead gorgeous she was, So it was nothing bad, so she was fine. She comes out. She feels that prick of danger. She didn't know if it was legit or if she was just having, like, a moment. Sure enough, she sees Tim. Ben sees her. He comes over to her because she's looking terrified. He's like, what's happened? What's going on? She's like, I'm so sorry. I got to go. And he's like, okay, we'll leave. I'll go tell Rachel and Will, and we'll leave. And then she's like, I'm so sorry. I never should have asked you out for breakfast. And he's like, what is going on? She takes off, and Tim comes after her. and he yells her name, Catherine, and she stops because she's so used to hearing that name and that fear. And then she's like, screw this, and she starts running. She takes off. She hauls ass in those stilettos, trying to find some type of peace. And that is how book 1 ends. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wanted to know what was going to happen right then. So we have a cliffhanger. So the next book in this series is called Touch Me, and we're going to review that one next week. Let me know what you guys thought of this one. I loved it. I thought it was so cute. I'm a sucker for anything really in San Francisco, so it'll get me every time. But what did you guys think? Drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links will be available down below in the description section. As always, make sure you like and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.